Back, please. And can remote participants please keep their cameras and microphones off unless they wish to speak, as this can affect the quality of the meeting online. The meeting is being live webcast and recordings will stay on the council's website afterwards. I'd like to welcome everyone to this evening's hybrid Sheppey Area Committee meeting, including anyone attending remotely. The following Scarborough Council officers are in attendance. Mr. Reid, Chief Executive, is online. On my left, we have the Head of Environment and Leisure, Martin Purcell. We have Capital Projects Manager, Inga Lorraine. We have Capital Projects Officer, Zoe Henshaw. Got that one last time. And on my right, Policy and Engagement Officer, Janet Dart. We have both our KCC members in attendance, Andy Booth and Mike Whiting. Next up is the parish councillors and town council in attendance. I see Mike Brown out there. Who else do we have? Do we have Sue Simpson?
Yeah.
No. I see Chris there, and obviously some Mike Brown. Oh, hello. And we've got many double hatters in the room as well. If any of you would like to speak on any item, please raise your hand and I'll invite you in turn to speak. Likewise, if anyone attending remotely, please raise their hand to indicate they wish to speak. Agenda item 1, emergency evacuation. Please be aware of the evacuation procedures following eventual emergency. There's no scheduled test of the fire alarm during this meeting. If the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly without collecting any of your possessions by the fire doors and assemble outside as directed and await instructions to re-enter. If anyone requires assistance, please indicate now and we'll make arrangements. And the fire exits are both behind you. Next up, apologies for absence, please, Janet.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Pete Neal.
Thank you. Item number 3, declaration of interest. Is there any interest to declare? No. I'll declare non-disposable pecuniary interest. I'm a member of the Levelling Up Working Group. Councillor Booth.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Non-disclosable pecuniary interest as Chairman of Stroll Community Leisure.
Okay. Councillor Moore. Okay, I think that's it. Agenda item 4. Do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of December in this room, minutes number 441 to 450 as a correct record?
Great.
Thank you. I'll sign them in a minute. Agenda item 5, devolution update. The Chief Executive, Mr. Reid, is joining us remotely and is going to give us an update on devolution in Kent.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to come to this part of the meeting to talk about devolution. Next slide, please, Janet. So devolution is something that was expected prior to the previous election. In the local government elections of 2023, there were the Labour manifesto was 21 pages long and it had 17 references to mayors. So we knew that there would be something to do with mayors if they formed a government, which they did. So this was not a surprise. What happened in December was there was the English devolution white paper, which set out what the government wanted to do for devolution. And what they said about councils are that they are the foundation of our state, critical to driving growth, delivering and reforming the local public services people rely on, and to our democratic system, where they're delivering 1.5 million homes, supporting the NHS, or delivering clean energy. The government's agenda relies on putting local authorities back on their feet. So just to say, for this item, I'm not passing comment on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. As an officer of the council, I'm just telling you and members of the public that, what this devolution paper is about. So next slide, please, Janet. So it's quite a long and boring read, really. So we've read it for you. And what it says is that we're one of the most centralised countries in the developed world. If you go to places like France, you get Monsieur le Maire, who has lots and lots of power. And if you go to America, they have different laws in different states. So in England, we are very, very centralised. And the government have said that devolution is fundamental to delivering growth. And that is around, instead of everything coming from the centre, that actually local areas can determine themselves how things work. They want to have a coverage of something called strategic authorities. So at the moment, there are places in the country that have mayors. So you will have all probably heard of Sadiq Khan, of Andy Street, who used to be a mayor, of Andy Burnham. For those of you that have watched Coronation Street historically, Tracy Brabin, who was in Coronation Street, is now the mayor of West Yorkshire. So mayors are not a new thing and they're not unusual. What is unusual is the previous government did things by deals. So people applied to have a deal, and those deals are all slightly different and the powers are slightly different. But the goal of the current government is to have universal coverage of strategic authorities, so devolution by default. And so that means mayors, they'd like to have a mayor everywhere, but certainly a strategic authority everywhere. And soon, in time, they will have integrated financial settlement powers, which means they will get money directly from the government, and they'll have powers over transport, infrastructure, skills, employment, housing, strategic planning. And for us, that could mean that we have a strategic authority for Kent that does a local plan in effect for Kent. Environment, climate change. Now, climate change makes absolute sense because carbon does not go, oh, actually, Swale are doing quite a lot on this. We won't go anywhere near them. It doesn't have boundaries. So the work we have to do to meet climate change going across boundaries is good. Economic development, health, well-being, and public safety. So there's a lot of things that this strategic authority will have power and will have responsibility to do. What perhaps people weren't expecting quite as much in the devolution paper was that it invited proposals for the reorganisation of two-tier areas. Now, we are in a two-tier area because we have a borough district council, we have Swale Borough Council, and we have Kent County Council. They are the two tiers. Although we have parishes and town councils, a two-tier talks very much about that. Medway Council is a unitary council in that they provide all the services that both KCC and the district does. And what the government have said is actually they'd quite like new unitary councils of about 500,000 people. And so that means that in effect, Swale will disappear as a council, as will Kent County Council and the others, but new councils that cover Swale will be created. So next slide, please. So, oh, are you there, Janet?
Bye-bye. Is it not?
Yeah, so the local government reorganisation, so the two things are the mayor and the strategic authority, which would be, in our case, a mayor for the whole of Kent, and you can either call that Kent or Kent and Medway or the historic county of Kent, but it's everywhere that has a Kent in their address. So Medway wouldn't be separate, and the mayor would cover the whole of that area, and they would have responsibility for those things that I've just mentioned, and they would have a committee which would be made up of potentially leaders and other politicians from the council, the police crime commissioner, fire, and so they would that mayor and the strategic mayoral authority would be quite powerful in Kent. What the government have said though is actually, if you go to the next slide, Janet, what we need to do is we need to reorganise local government. Now, no, one back. Reorganise local government. Now, what we know about local government is we don't have an awful lot of money, so which is sad, and we don't get to do many of the things that we want to do because we don't have the money. And what the government have said is councils could be much better, but they don't have the money, and the way that government is funded is currently outdated, inefficient, and poor value for money. What they say is, and we know this from our place, if we have an increase in homelessness applications, which we do, we can't just get more staff in to do that or do more prevention work because we don't have the money. And there are some councils in the country that have got lots and lots and lots of reserves, millions in reserve, and there are others that are just about to go bust. And what they've said is that's not right. And they've said that the link between need and funding is also not there properly. And what the government have said is, as the costs of statutory services, the things we have to do, so collecting the bins, doing homelessness, as those have increased, we've had to reduce the number of services we can provide, and that has impacted on communities. And they say the community services and prevention services have been affected. And the other thing that they say is they want to restore trust in local government, and that requires clear lines of accountability and oversight. And what they say is that there's quite a lot of combative tone between us and KCC, or KCC and us, and actually they want to stop that, and they want to empower local leaders to basically be in charge of everything. So that's what they want to do. So the bit about the local government reform has had quite a lot of, probably more press than the mayor. And you may have heard and seen things that say, oh yes, we're going to become part of Medway, or oh yes, we're going to join this, oh yes, that's going to happen. So I'm just going to share with you what we know and what we don't know. So what we know is the government want strategic mayoral authorities. We know that, they've been very clear about that, and they've put forward something called the Devolution Priority Programme to allow councils, upper tier councils, so Kent County Council and Medway, to apply to go on a fast track programme to get a mayor sooner. And Kent did that, and we don't yet know if they were successful, but I'll come on to that. So next slide, please, Janet. So what we know is, we absolutely know that the government wants strategic mayoral authorities. We also know that the government has told us that they haven't got the money to fund us to the level that we all need to do the things that we want to do. So we know that from our financial settlements that we haven't had a massive hike in money coming into the council. So we know there's still some difficulties there. And that means that councils will continue to go the way that some councils have gone and go bust. But what we also know is that Swale is not going anywhere. Sheerness is not suddenly going to move somewhere. It's still going to be where it is today. And our residents are not going anywhere. They're still going to need our services. So whatever the institution looks like, we know that there are residents and there is a place, and those things are the most important thing to the officers of Swale and the members of Swale Borough Council. So they're the things we know. Next slide, please. That's not a lot, actually, that we know. What we don't know is we don't know how many unitary councils there'll be for Kent. We think that there may be 3 or 4, but we don't know that. We don't make the decision on that. That's a government decision. And we don't know whether this will actually happen and what the timescale is. We think it probably will happen. The government have said, well, they'd like it done by 2027, all sorted, a mayor in place by next May, and then unitary authorities by 2027. But there has been an acknowledgement that that's too quick. You can't get complete real government reorganisation in that time. So that's being pushed to 2028. But what we do know from any government is things slip. So we don't know what the timescale is. And what we don't know is what the impact on our staff is going to be. Our councillors are really concerned about our staff because they all come to work. 82% of them are residents of Swale, and the impact on staff everywhere that this has happened in the past, and I've spoken to lots of people, there have been very few redundancies except senior staff. So if you've got 14 chief executives at the moment of councils and we go down to 3, then that will be 11 chief executives you won't need. But you're still going to need people to answer the phone, and you're still going to need people to check the play areas, and you're still going to need people to do all the things. So actually, what we know is that elsewhere where this has happened, there's not very many redundancies. What the risk to us is, though, is that people, when we have vacancies, people won't come and work with us because of the uncertainty, because they won't know whether they've got a job in 3, 4, 5 years' time. So that is a risk for us. But we don't know lots. And the main thing we don't know is what the unitary geography for Kent is going to be like. And that's something that is causing a lot of councillors across the county quite a lot of concern. So next slide, please, Janet. So we were going to find out if we'd been accepted on the devolution priority programme by last Friday. Unfortunately, we don't know that yet. The other thing that was going to happen last week was I was going to get a letter, as was the leader of the council, that was going to set out the parameters by which we could set up these unitary authorities. So they'd said 500,000 people. Was that set in stone? What did that look like? You know, what is it going to look like? What are the parameters? What's the framework? And we haven't had those letters, and we're still waiting. We're now told that we may get them tomorrow or Thursday, but again, we just don't know. We are just waiting. Then there'll be a centrally led consultation on the proposal to become a mayoral strategic authority. So the government have been really clear in the white paper that they are not, it's not a referendum. They're sort of, it's a centrally led consultation. So we think that's likely to say things like, you know, going to have a mayor, what do you want it to look like? Once that's happened, then we have to reach agreement to proceed with government. So that's not an us saying we want to do it. And with the mayoral strategic authority, districts like us haven't had any say in whether we do this or not legally. Kent County Council and Medway have been probably the best in the country, councils at that level of working with their district colleagues. They've been very, very, very good, and it is now held up as actually Kent are the best at doing this because they really are working well with us. Then we have to go through Parliament because it's all legal, and then in May 26 we'll have mayoral election. And then they're saying, well, in May 27 we would have an election to set up what the new unitary authority council would look like, and that would be elections for a council that won't exist for a year. So you'll have elections and the council will have no money because the swale will still be in existence. And what will happen is the job of those councillors will be to set up that council and work with staff to make sure that it's all set up with policies and procedures and computer systems. So on go live day, it's safe and legal, that everybody knows what's going to happen. So other than the January time scale, which has already passed and we haven't had the letter, all of these timescales are subject to change. The white paper is just that. It is a paper, it is an idea. The bill has got to go through Parliament, and we've no suggestion that it won't go through Parliament and it won't clear all the hurdles, but it's not, nothing is set in stone at this stage. If you're part of the a town or parish council, we will be doing a special next week. We've got a special meeting of the local council's liaison forum, and I will then be using that to go through more of the technical detail of what's going to happen, and that's more around the mayoralty and how that will work. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So that's open to the floor. Is there any questions from anyone? Councillor Worcester first, please.
Did you want to share the screen, Janet? Sorry.
Do you want to come forward so that I want the response to be able to hear you?
Is it okay here?
No, come in the hot seat, please.
I just wanted to ask,
can we have any clarification about the best way that we can communicate that information to residents? Because obviously there's a lot of stuff in the national media about devolution. It's not an easy subject to get your head around, even if you're attending meetings where it's included on agendas, and it's going to affect everybody. For example, could we possibly include, when we know more, if it's possible, something in a magazine that goes out potentially, or a dedicated area of our website where we can signpost people to? Because obviously what's happened, especially to me, because I run Sheerness Town Council, I've got staff, like other parishes have got. There's been a fair amount of miscommunication about things that have been announced and not been announced. If we can signpost people to one place where we can actually say, it's not about our opinion about what's happening, it's just about what actually has been released.
Yeah.
I think that would be a really good start.
So I think absolutely the dedicated space on the website would be very, very useful. I think the only problem with putting stuff in the inside Swale at the moment, there's absolutely a place for that, is the landscape's changing quite quickly. So what we put in today actually could change by next Thursday. So that's the difficulty with something that's quite a long lead-in time. But I certainly think once we know what the geography is going to be, for example, once we know that we are on the devolution priority programme and what the timescales for that are, once we know all of that, then absolutely we need to get this out. Because you're right, this has been said, this is the largest change in local government since 1974. And, you know, that's a massive change. And one of the things that's also been said, and I'm not passing comment, I'm just saying that this is what is one of the narratives, certainly from our kind of body, which is the District Councils Network and also the Local Government Association, is that the voice of the residents being lost in this because there's no consultation. We're not asking residents if they want it. We're sort of telling residents that it's happening, which is, we don't have a choice to do that. But that's something that certainly we need to make sure that we get right. But as I've said, the government are quite clear that they are running the consultation, certainly for the strategic mayoral authority, in the event that we get accepted on the devolution priority programme.
Lovely, thank you.
Councillor Whiting. You
I
can
can
probably
hear you, Councillor Whiting.
I'll move anyway. Thank you. And thanks for that, Lewis. It's really helpful. And I think what the point that came across to me quite strongly really was we won't be in control of this in many aspects, and it will be the government leading it. And we are going to be relying, going back to the last point made, we're going to be relying heavily on government giving us the correct information to be able to put out to residents in a clear and concise and accurate way. And so we need to hold their feet to the fire to make sure we can do that. You said we were supposed to have heard about this on Friday, but put back to tomorrow. I'm not holding the breath for tomorrow, but I haven't got the inside track on that. They may yet surprise us. One of the things that I think will be quite important for Sheppey, remembering that if we do move for a unitary authority, which may include 3, possibly 4 districts in one unitary, we don't know how that's going to work out yet. We don't want to lose Sheppey's voice in what will become a much bigger sea, a much bigger pond. We've got one area of Sheppey, so I think the towns and the parishes on Sheppey will be that important link with local communities to be able to feed up to the centre, wherever the centre ends up being. We've got one area of Sheppey that doesn't have a parish, which is Halfway, and I think the residents of Halfway, it happens to fall in my ward, but I think the residents of Halfway moving forward will be disadvantaged. Now, we'd have to make the case for that, but I would hope, I know we can do it, and whether the chairman will accept a proposal, that actually this committee tonight refers back to the relevant service committee at Swale to an agreement that we're looking for a local government review of the parishes on Sheppey to ensure that we can create a new parish in the Halfway to ensure that the people of Halfway do get the strongest voice possible whatever the new arrangements are, the government come forward. I don't know if I've got a seconder for that, Chairman, but, oh, thank you.
Can I just to help you, if you use the wording community governance review, that is the review that one would do to create a parish. So just if you use that word, it will help.
And if we could refer that, Chairman, back to the relevant service committee as well, then we can get that ball rolling now, regardless of what happens, because I think if moving forward, the end game, the government are very clear what the end game is going to be. So we do need to get the ball rolling to make sure that that one part of Sheppey isn't somehow left behind. Thanks for that.
Larissa, can you just clarify that's not in the service delivery plan already?
So it is. The issue that we have is we're not allowed to do it at the moment. We are undertaking a local government boundary review, and the proposed number of councillors was submitted last week. It went to full council last Wednesday. The next stage of that is to then decide what the ward boundaries are. And we're not allowed to undertake any governance reviews unless they come through petition whilst that happens. However, what we do know is that if the devolution priority programme and the local government reform happens, there is a possibility that the local government boundary review will stop. And if that stops, then we're free to start the community governance review. And members have been clear that as soon as it's completed, because we didn't know at the time that this was going to happen, but as soon as we're able to, that we will undertake the community governance reviews. It doesn't mean that you will get a halfway parish. It means that we will ask residents, because there is a cost, there is a precept to have a parish, and it will be up to residents to decide whether you wish to have a parish council. But absolutely, but I think, Chair, sending that to the relevant committee, I don't think would negate that. I think it just strengthens the view of the people of Sheppey. And I think Councillor Whiting's right. It's important that all voices are heard.
Councillor Whiting?
Just thank you very much for that, Larissa, that clarification, very helpful. I think in the middle of that, you said unless there was a petition, and of course it's open to residents, isn't it? If we have 10% of the electors of halfway petition the council, then we can, from what you said, we can get round that blockage that is currently there due to the ongoing boundary review. So we can get round the boundary review issue by having, if it's 10%, it's probably about 300 or 400 signatures.
I can send you the relevant legislation that sets out. It's a different percentage depending on the size, but I'll send it. I can send it to the chair, who can send it out with the minutes if that helps.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you, Lewis. Thanks, Chair.
Peter?
Yes, I don't know whether you can hear me or
I
do I
can.
need to.
No, I can hear you, Councillor McDonald.
When my mother was on Sheppey Urban District Council, Sheppey Rural Council and Minster Parish, it was halfway was always in Minster Parish, and I'm afraid when Swale was created, they decided to cut it off. So they're not represented, and I think it was pretty appalling, frankly, because they do get problems which can be solved at the parish level, and it used to be part of Minster. So, frankly, it ought to be put back in Minster. Not that I'm looking to expand it, but that would be the best way forward.
Perhaps that can be a consultation option. Mike?
Yeah, going on from what Councillor Whiting was saying, I think the future of parish and town councils are a huge factor in this. They are going to be the local preservation of local interests. I can't see a unitary authority perhaps in Maidstone worrying about rubbish bin in East Church High Street. This is what the parishes and the town council do. So we're looking for something very positive out of this for parish and town councils, and where we actually sit, how much control we have, what if we have any new powers or less. We need to know very quickly.
Definitely. Okay, I see no. Is it on this proposal? I'll put your hand for the item, but we're just going to go. We're going to vote on the proposal. So we've got proposed which has been proposed, it's been seconded. All those in favour, the borough councillors, please show. And against? One abstention, one. Abstentions, one. Okay, so that is passed. We'll send that to the Policy and Resources Committee. Councillor No.
Sorry, it was just a very quick question because I didn't quite catch what you said. You mentioned a meeting next week for the local government, parish council, town councils. Is this something that's open to parish councils and town councils?
So what happens is it's a meeting that's run by the leader of the council, and it is for representatives, so chair or vice chair or a representative from the council and the clerk. And it is a meeting for those parish councils to talk to the council as Swale Borough Council. It's not a public meeting. It's talking about parish things and things that are important to parishes. So we tend to talk things like policy, government policy that's coming down. I did one of the items was what happened before the monarch passed away, what happens when the monarch dies. So it is a thing for parish and towns. It's not a, but yes, it's open to your parish council. And if you want details, if you just contact me, I'll send you the link.
Okay, thank you.
Has the link been sent out yet? Because I haven't received it as chair of minister,
Yeah.
so.
I will check that, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, and I'll make sure that it goes out.
And can I urge town and parish council to go? Because I think I've been, if not the only one of only 2 representatives from the island. So, fresh attendance to that. Great. Is there any further questions on devolution? No, if not. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we have got a question online. Member of the public. Nikki, would you like to speak?
Hiya, my question is with regards to the parish and town councils. Now, we all know that they play a vital role in our community on the island. How would the devolution impact those councillors? Will it diminish the amount of councillors per parish and per town council?
No. So there's 2 answers to this that conflict with each other. One is that parish and town councils aren't affected by this. So that's the main answer. But actually, they're very much affected by this. As one of the previous speakers said, they are the local people. And one of the things that has been discussed, and certainly I'm discussing with Kent Authority for Local Councils, CALC, is actually what's the role of parish and town councils, because they have a really big role. They could take on services from the unitary. So if you've got a unitary and you've got, say, I'm just going to name as public toilets in Minster, they could say, actually, we'll take those on. They could take on other services, and there are some real issues there, because there's two main issues. One, for some town councils, that's great. They're well set up. They've got staff. But there are other parish councils where maybe there's 200 people in the parish. They have, very, very part-time parish councillors that really don't want to take on managing services. So we've got to work out how to do that. But absolutely, the role of parishes, the view is it will increase, but it has to increase with the agreement of parish councillors, because unfortunately, when I'm not being the chief executive of Swale Borough Council, I'm the returning officer, and we struggle to get enough people that want to stand as parish councillors. Actually, I'm an appointed parish councillor myself, for the simple reason that we have a parish that we can't get anyone to stand. So I am a parish councillor to make it quorate. So I am appointed by the council to do that, by the monitoring officer. So yes, it is important, but we do need to try and get people that are willing to stand to be parish councillors, because without that, that's what will diminish the numbers, not the legislation.
Okay. Right, thanks for coming, Larissa.
Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. We'll move on in the agenda. Item 6 is the Sheerness Revival Project update. Who's going to start? Okay,
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, committee, for giving us the opportunity to give you an update on the Sheppey Survival Programme. So, and I'll go through and give you a slight update, and we'll take questions at the very end. So we start the update with projects progressing quite well. We're in construction stage for all 3 projects, or leading into early enabling works. We are completing the Q3 24-25 reports that we submit to government on a regular basis, and we are on track for the outputs and outcomes. We raised a contractor for the Beachville Regeneration Programme, and the planning permission was granted in January. Partners have temporarily been relocated to their temporary locations across the island. Pre-construction work has begun, and adventure golf is expected to be completed in July 2025. We've got some of there, but it's coming forward in July, and completion is expected in late spring 2026. And that's the beach fields. In terms of Sheppey College, EKC have appointed a contractor, that's the Jenners, and enabling works have commenced on site. Expected completion of that project is October 2025. And with Masters House, we've recently appointed a contractor who was on site today. Works are due to start later this month, and completion is expected spring 2025. So that will be the first project that comes forward for us. And I'll move on to the communication and engagement.
So we have various consultations planned across the island, and they are actually kick-started on Monday with 2 visits to local schools. Yeah. So we went to EKC, and we also went to Rose Street Primary. And they were consultations regarding the adventure golf course, which is going into Beachfield. We've been doing regular press releases, and they've become more frequent throughout January. We have more planned to go out throughout February and moving into March as we move into construction. So the first of those will take place on Thursday as EKC are going to ground, and we've got a nice shiny spade to go into the tarmac, which hopefully has been dug up, so that's where you can actually hit soil. We've also sent out the first Sheppey Revival newsletter. Now this is something that we set up back in March last year. We didn't put a push on it because during that period we were doing surveys. We've now started to do a push on it, and we're increasing the numbers on that. The first issue went out, and I can say that it reached 104 people, and only 3 of those emails bounced back. So we had a really good sort of engagement rate on that one. But hopefully the next issue I'll be able to come to tell you that we've reached 300 people, and again that will move forward. But thanks to those that have shared the posts on Facebook and social media. The engagement on that has been amazing, and we've reached up to 13,000 people on some of those posts alone. So we're getting really good coverage in terms of the comms, and hopefully that's going to keep growing now that we've got more to say and shout about. So as I said, we're currently in consultation for the adventure golf, and this has gone out and this is now live. So this is can be accessed via the Facebook page, and it can be accessed via the Swalborough Council website, and it's also on the Sheppey Revival website. This is the current proposed plan for the adventure golf. The adventure golf is celebrating all things Sheppey. So we've worked with our team and looked into the local history of the island, and we've tried to pick out key things. 1 or 2 of those holes will be remodelled based on input from residents and from the local children that we visited within the schools. So they created Play-Doh replica holes that they presented to the design team. And some of those were really fantastic and included the clock tower, the Blue Town wall, the wall, and we've also had, I can't think now, but yeah, so there has been a lot of design around that, and the children have put a lot of thought into it. So that's very exciting, and hopefully I'll be able to think back what that is, and we'll be able to come to you guys in terms of what you'd like to see included in that adventure golf, and the name of that adventure golf as well. So it's not yet named.
Okay. Any questions? Councillor Worcester.
Thank you for the presentation.
when you're looking at the image goal, that looks like a really detailed design, is that costings all part of what's already been costed, or are you expecting those intricate designs to potentially take the project over budget at all?
No, so it's all being costed.
That's really good, and what I thought was really nice was including the children, and also, from what I've looked at, other than the helter skelter,
Lighthouse.
lighthouse, apologies, most of that looked like it was Sheppey based. The lighthouse or helter skelter is the one thing that's struck me that we've never really had here, but other than that, I thought it was lovely.
So yeah, so as I said, one or two of those holes are up for debate, and the lighthouse is the whole, the lighthouse, and when it's back up, there's also, so you've got the lighthouse in front of HMS Montgomery in the middle there, and just to the left of it is a whale.
I was going to say the whale.
So the wow and the swell is disappearing, which is a mouthful which the school kids really liked. So the wow and the swell will no longer be a wow and the swell. That is up to debate. So
As long as it doesn't smell like the whale washed up at Walton Bay.
Yeah.
this was the wow and the swell that the design team found. So
Oh.
it will not be the wow and the swell.
You could replace with Sandy Seal, which we often see off of Lees or around Queenborough Harbour. Apparently he likes to come up and do a little show for people. I've only ever seen his head, so I know he exists, but apparently he likes to make it appeal to tourists.
So I've now remembered it actually, Dolly. So the seal has been mentioned in the online survey. So currently, I think within the first 24 hours of actually the survey going live, we had 30 responses, which isn't bad. But one of the school children, I don't know if they'd done it in history or they'd read about it themselves, they actually said it would make a very perfect location for Dead Man's Island.
That's brilliant. I bet the kids will love that. A bit of body parts.
Yeah, a couple of bones and stuff in the hull.
Yeah.
As in the whole maybe being, I think the little girl that actually did it was a girl that designed it, said that you could hit the ball into the skeleton's eye as your hole in one. So her imagination was definitely creative in that form.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor White.
Just a quick point, because I think I've responded to the consultation, but I didn't mention, because I hadn't really noticed, the new bridge, the new Sheppey crossing is clearly the iconic thing now, possibly moving forward more than the old Kingsbury Bridge. I don't know. No, I'm here to be persuaded either way. I've got no firm view, but it does seem a bit odd, given also that big sweep of a curve would seem to me sort of an ideal fairway for a crazy golfer, but it doesn't appear on there anywhere.
No, I could definitely feed that back. I mean, I think the idea of the King's Ferry, obviously that was the original connection to the mainland, so to say. So I think that's what they focused on. But actually, it could be that we add in the new crossing as a faster option to get your hole in one, as opposed to going across the bridge.
The political statement there, yeah.
And one of the school children said that maybe that bridge raises and closes to London. So
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
they had fantastic ideas.
I've just got to say, actually, just to interrupt, sorry, what child from Sheppey hasn't stood at the edge of the bridge to watch the bridge go up and watch the boats go underneath?
Yeah.
I think you could count them on one hand, children that have done, and if they haven't done that, goodness me, we need to organise some sort of trip so they can do that. That's the most exciting thing children can do, isn't
You
it?
missed out the bell ringing and then running back scared to the car. That's the hot stuff, isn't it? Surely. How many holes is the,
It's going to be 15
oh,
holes.
wow.
So it's a 15-hole adventure golf course. It covers everything from flying dinosaurs to fossil beaches to aeroplanes. And a little boy, and I'm not going to forget his face for a very long time, when I asked him what made the adventure golf special, he said, well, the island is special and it just highlights everything why we love our island so much. And his little face gleamed as I told him that he could potentially come and have the first part of his hole, which we won. So
It's that's a very strange child, and that's one of mine on the governor there, so I'll take that back to their head teacher.
Right, there's no further questions.
I think that, should I be in the public forum or shall I do it now?
If it's on this item, go now.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna find out.
Well, you're fine there, we can hear you. Okay.
Okay, I have been, I think, to every single consultation that you can go to about this. And I have put loads of ideas forwards and I don't think any of them have been taken up, but right, so this is what I put in. Is it still in the plan to move that sign which Sheerness Town Council paid for to have it put there? That's
Can, when you say move, can you elaborate on what you mean?
well, I thought I had heard that that entrance is going to be moved and therefore would have to move that. That's basically what I'm concerned about because it seems a bit pointless to move it to me.
Oh, no, so the entrance is going to be widened to make it more appealing and for easier access into the area. And then all we're going to do is move the sign to centralise it once the path has been widened. So it's not going to be moved location, it's just going to be centralised into the new widening of the path.
Okay, well, that basically answers my question. I was, the second bit of my question was that if you weren't going to move it, there'd be some spare money, which could then be spent on the Neptune steps. But, and the other thing is, every time I've gone to one of the consultations, I've suggested that the cafe bit should be upstairs because that would be the one place on Sheppey where you get a lovely view of the sea. And it seems a bit of a shame not to take advantage of our unique position
So
with seaside views.
again, that was something we understand, and obviously that was something we all wanted within the plans. We looked at the feasibility of that. Councillor Whiting was involved in that as well. And actually, when it came down to it, just wouldn't have worked with the plans of the centre to maximise the space within the current building itself.
So what is going to be upstairs?
It's going to be, part upstairs will be part leisure facilities, so the fitness suite. We also have Sheppey Matters, the charity that's located on that part of the building. We did explore sort of capitalising on the views, but due to budget constraints and configuration of the building, it was going to prove too costly. And so, unfortunately, we've had to resort to the cafe being on the ground floor. In terms of accessibility as well, and for the commercial element of the project, it's on the ground floor.
I think if we were starting with a new building, Chris, we would absolutely would have looked to have achieved that and done it on a grander scale. I also work quite closely with the Environment Agency, and clearly over time that wall might need to get higher as we look at climate change, etc. as well. So our building with a cafe looking out nicely over there might not have that view for very long, and so we had to weigh up all the issues of getting the right balance. At the moment, rooms are all over the place. What we wanted to do within the confines of the existing building, and it's a very complicated building when you look at the piling and all of the construction. We were in a bit of a straitjacket when it came to getting everything that we wanted, but certainly at the moment the intention is it's on the ground floor to service the main facilities down there, the GP surgery, the Inerva suite, and obviously the soft play that's being added as well. So the cafe is integral to those services.
Right, okay, and just one last thing. I've also put forward the suggestion in the Beachfields Park somewhere, one of those solid concrete or metal ping pong tables, like they have in most of the parks in London, and everybody loves them. Thank you.
So thank you. I think that's a really good suggestion, and what we're doing elsewhere, just outside the front of the building, we've got some funding for an outdoor gym area. We're doing up the tennis court, and at the moment we've got a bit of a clear space that we're a bit unsure about what to do. So some of the things that are being thrown forward from the design team are a learn to ride little track for children, things like that. So there's absolutely no reason that we couldn't integrate an outdoor ping pong table into that sort of area. Really what we're trying to do is to get that area in front of the new entrance to the reception. So at the moment, instead of where you currently enter the building, the new opening for the leisure centre, the new door for the leisure centre is going to be the other side of the building, nearer to Beach Street. And so what we're trying to do is create activity in and around that area that's overlooked. So you've got lots of people coming and going, and we're hoping that that will design out some of the antisocial behaviour and vandalism issues that we've been encountering already on the project, and obviously as a leisure centre over the years. So by trying to create more footfall in certain areas, it's hopefully becomes more self-policing in terms of those activities as well.
Councillor Worcester.
Just quickly, obviously, I do take that point, but I think if we're going to look at projects, I think the whole community would like to go back to the options that we looked at during the consultation period for levelling up funding. There were lots of good ideas that came forward from the community. If we're going to stop option 2 projects, and I think that really needs a whole process layout to make sure that those ideas are all reconsidered, because obviously Chris is brilliant at coming along and beating drum for Neptune Terrace and table tennis tables and some really good stuff that she comes forward with in town council meetings, absolutely. But for example, we did have lots of residents come forward at the start with those ideas, and they all need a kind of fair hearing if we're going to put stuff that is going to be reflective of everybody on their own, because that level up, even though it's based in Sheerness, it really does need to be supportive for the wider community as well as Sheerness. And the area meetings are the perfect place to kind of discuss those things. So maybe we could come back with a bit of an agenda item at some point to invite those people back and discuss those ideas they had at the beginning, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give everybody an illusion that we're suddenly saving lots of money on the project and there's going to be loads of options for new ideas. I think what we're saying is where we haven't quite finalised the detail on certain areas, that's where the likes of Zoe's consultations, etc., will be that. So yeah, please don't go away thinking that everything can come back on the table. In answer to Chris's query on the don't move the sign, it's not going to save the £200,000 that would be needed for Neptune steps, unfortunately. So you know, we can't do those things. So
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, quickly on Neptune Terrace, of course, Neptune steps. That is actually the responsibility of the Environment Agency. They put it there. They hide all their accounts, and would you believe they get £1.8 billion a year from their budget? So I think they can afford to spend a bit of money on some of the beaches in Sheppey, and also the Neptune Terrace, which just needs a lowering and a proper slope, disabled slope and a gate. So that, you know, that's another issue. Sorry, it's not, no, I'm not moaning at you.
Councillor McDonald, we've had that conversation a lot of times. When they come forward with their plans to make it hot, then we'll put it into them around.
Well, they need to protect the base of the beach by creating the beach, which obviously protects the seawall. So that's, you know, I don't know where these people come from, but that's historic. What happened even before the war by the local councils that put the groins in originally. But anyway, that's another issue.
Yes, definitely. That's
yes.
not level. I don't think that's levelling up. I can't see that on here.
No, it's not levelling up. Yeah, the only thing I would ask, because of the absolutely appalling economics of Sheppey, huge numbers of non-employed, and it hasn't recovered since the closure of the Royal Duck Out, which was now 60 years ago. Yeah, we had the steelworks, but you know, cost of energy and things like that the business. We've now lost Abbott's, which was put there, which was bought by Seekers. Now they want to redevelop the land. That was actually Abbott's came in as a work employment issue, and the land was allocated by the government at the time from the Navy, because it was all naval land, and that it was the minesweeper base. So, you know, that really should go for employment. But the issue that, the only thing that's come forward by certain groups at the moment, and I know you can't do it in your levelling up budget because you just haven't got the money, but it's allocating a site for a 50-metre international swimming pool, because that will bring huge sums of money into Sheppey. There aren't any in Kent, and the nearest one is Stratford, which was put there in the Olympics. But there is a very large demand for that type of facility. So instead of having something second best, we will have to redevelop the pool later on because it is in a bit of a pickle. I've been underneath it, so it's okay. It's not. It would appear to me not to be likely to be collapsed very soon, but it's really past its sell-by date. And a large swimming pool, which will encourage people to come in their droves, competitions and things like this, will actually bring money into the area. So I think that's absolutely essential. There aren't any in Kent, and people have to travel miles to practice for Olympics and things like that. So that really is something that should happen. And I was looking with the University of Glasgow.
Peter, I think we discussed this last meeting, but
it doesn't matter. You know,
we don't need to go over it.
Nothing's happened.
Well, no, not between these meetings, but I think we discussed that point at the last meeting. John Twiston from Public, please.
The present legislation covers 2 dilapidated tennis courts. Does the new scheme include tennis courts as there are no public courts on the island?
Yeah, so it looks at retaining one of the tennis. So it looks at retaining one of the tennis courts that are currently on the island, so outside of beach roads, and restoring it and reinstating fencing around it to make it more.
Restoring the ones up there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Worcester.
Just to pick up on Kate's point, actually, we're not looking to rehash what's going on, but there is a definite conversation that needs to happen around the swimming pool. There needs to be an issue about whether that pool is fit for purpose. Lots of the pools that have gone in Medway actually are not fit for purpose, and they cost an awful lot of huge amount of money to install. It's a massive investment for the community. And actually, I think we would just like to know that Swale's conversation includes the pool, and we are bringing it back to the public at some point. So I'm not labouring Pete's point, absolutely not. I've not got any technical support like he has. But we know we've got a big swell of residents that need those questions answered around the pool as well. And I know it's not part of the bid, but for the public perception, it is, because it's right on the same piece of land.
Martin?
Through you, Chair, I'm happy to answer that, given that I look after that as well. So I can assure you and everybody in the room that projects are underway looking at feasibility of future phases particularly in relation to the swimming pool. As Councillor MacDonald alluded, I've also been under the pool. It's not going to fall over tomorrow, so just to put that on record, so that Peter doesn't upset everyone. But it's a very old pool. We do a reasonable job at keeping it operational for residents, but we absolutely know that we need to up the game in terms of swimming provision on the island. There's a document that the council's already signed off called the Built Facilities Strategy that looks at all of the future population demands and what leisure facilities are needed in order to service those future population demands. And it talks about an increase in swimming pool water over the life cycle of that strategy. It's a 15-year strategy, but we are already, as well as delivering this first phase, looking at the future, how we might fund future phases. And the designs, and the reason that I can answer it under this item is the designs for the first phase, i.e. this dry side, the current Sheppey leisure complex, they have taken into consideration future options to be able to attach the pool to the dry side building. So instead of having 2 buildings, it would be one all-encompassing leisure centre. And so the designs in this stage the architects were given the brief to think about how we might do it, should we move to another phase. And that's where some of the constraints of the building that I talked about earlier, again, it's about thinking about the next stage on. If we're able to do that, one building more efficient to run, you can run similar plant, you only need one receptionist, one manager, etc., etc. So again, from a public purse point of view, you'd be able to run a more efficient leisure service. For those that haven't been on the borough committees, the council, the Community and Leisure Committee have just agreed to proceed with a new 10-year leisure contract, go out to tender for that. So we are currently undertaking the work to be able to do that. And the operators of that will be asked as well about what investment they can bring to the existing facilities. So I can assure you there's lots of work happening behind the scenes. And as soon as we know more, then we can come out and update you guys.
That sounds really positive, thank you.
John Twiston.
Pretty quickly, on a previous meeting I went to, the existing car park, you get a voucher, you get your money back. With your reorientation of the building, the entrance is going to move to the other end. So will Beach Street go on the same scheme as the existing car park for your money back voucher?
And so all of our machines have the ability to give that voucher out. That does that. Part of the decision for our borough councillors in the room moving forward on that new contract will be whether they continue to refund car parking for those facilities or not. But if the decision is to keep parking and the door moves to the other side, Beach Street car park would exactly have that functionality to get the voucher, take it in and get your refund.
Right, I think we've done that item. So next up is agenda item 7, waste and street cleansing scrutiny review update. And Janet is going to give us the update. Thank you very much for coming. Oh, cool. You need to speak, sir. No. Oh.
So I've been asked by members this evening to provide an update on the waste and street cleansing scrutiny review. Just bear with me while I'm trying to multitask. Right, okay. So to give a bit of background, in July last year, the Environment and Climate Change Committee agreed that a scrutiny review should be carried out on the mobilisation of the new waste and street cleansing service for Swale following a period of disruption. It's also good practice at the end of a major project like this to carry out a review, but in this case, members felt that the review should be carried out as soon as possible so that residents had answers to questions about what happened. A cross-party member scrutiny panel was formed of 5 councillors to carry out the review, and between August and November last year, the member panel held a number of workshops and meetings with key officers and representatives from the SUEs. The workshops were themed and focused on resources and staffing, data and rounds, contract and project management and communications. The panel looked at key information, which included items such as tender documents, risk registers, mobilisation and recovery plans, and office and member working group notes. In September last year, the area committees and local councils liaison forum were consulted and their feedback was fed into the review. There was also a public consultation which was launched on the 3rd of September and closed on the 2nd of October. There were over 2,000 responses received, and they were also fed into the review. A survey of all of the Swale Borough Council members was carried out to find out how each of the individual wards were impacted. Following the panel's investigations, members developed a report which summarised their conclusions about the root causes of the problems at the start of the new waste contract. And they also agreed 23 recommendations so that learning could be carried forward. And there were also actions within those recommendations. So the 23 recommendations covered areas such as training, contract monitoring, resources, data, the impact of new housing developments, vulnerable properties, ongoing scrutiny and communication. The member panel took the report to the Environment and Climate Change Committee on the 15th of January this year, where the findings were discussed and the 23 recommendations agreed. The committee proposed and agreed a couple of minor amendments to the recommendations around scrutiny going forward and also the frequency of taking update reports to the committee. So the purpose of coming to you this evening is to make sure that everybody, residents, parish and town councils are aware that the report has now been published. It's on the Swell Borough Council website, and you can see on the screen the link to the report. The report is quite lengthy. It includes summaries of the consultations carried out, but we have put together a summarised version of the report listing the recommendations. And I brought along some hard copies if anybody would like to take those away this evening. If you haven't got internet access, and it's easier for you to have a hard copy. I can also email the link to anybody because it's a bit of a long one to remember, if that's easier. So that's really the update. Are there any questions?
So we all know things didn't quite go right, but I don't suppose we relitigate the whole period. Some of us may have PTSD from it. So if there's any genuine questions they'd like answered tonight, then Peter?
Yeah, it's a comment that I'd like to make is that I was very pleased to see the contractor or their staff actually cleaning some of the grass on the footpaths and things like that. I thought they did a fantastic job, quite frankly, and well done to them.
Comment?
Other than to say thank you, certainly there's still lots of improvements just because the scrutiny review has concluded. There's still lots of improvements that we need to bring forward, but it's one of the key things was a greater presence out on street cleansing and certainly seeing that in some of the areas now.
Councillor Nundy.
Yeah, obviously the Suez, I mean, it was called the Suez crisis for a while by residents on the island, but that only lasted about 9 days. But the original one, this one lasted probably more like 9 months. Will the council be trying to take Suez to court to get money back from them for breach of contract? Because if they've signed up to something and they've signed a contract to do that and they have breached that contract, surely Swale should be able to get some sort of money in return because it is ultimately public money and we should be trying to protect that.
So the contract does allow us to recover, to make financial deductions based upon performance. I can assure the audience that those deductions are being implemented and made. And so again, the Environment Committee will have updates on that sort of information. I think we agreed in July was the first report to go to the Environment Committee. But yeah, absolutely, the contract gives us much better teeth than previous contracts in terms of recognising good performance and recognising bad performance, poor performance, and it gives us mechanisms to be able to, one, ask for improvements, and two, if those improvements don't come forward, then to make deductions based upon the payments.
Thank you.
Councillor Worcester.
2 things. I think that email, if it's all right, needs to go to all parish council clerks. So that I'm not suggesting they print it out, but what I'm suggesting they've got access to it, so they can be call residents if they would like to see it. I've just googled Swale Waste Scrutiny Review, and every link that I clicked on doesn't lead me to the scrutiny report. So we do need to be really careful that people can actually get access to the report really clearly. And I'll suggest that that is a meaty link, which probably absolutely works. But the majority of people, if they're going to go and find that scrutiny review, they're going to want to type it into Google and go straight to Swell's page. So is there any way we can pass that back to comms that actually?
I can feed that back and get that checked.
I'm only saying it because I'm trying to put it on my own notes for the meeting, and if I'm having trouble, then I'll suggest potentially other people might want.
We also have the ability of shorter web addresses as well, so let's speak to the comms manager around swale.gov.uk/waste scrutiny or something. At least it's something that we can all remember. Yeah.
Councillor Whiting.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. One of the most regular complaints I get now that the bins do seem to have settled down is just the street waste and the street cleansing issues. And I must say, it's exacerbated by, and is particularly bad in areas where the council has decided to take away the dog litter bins and the waste bins. In the last couple of tranches where we've taken these bins away from areas of high footfall, particularly where people are walking dogs and where children are playing, other areas. And they're the areas that seem to be coming out worse when it comes to littering on the streets, and the people are noticing and making that known. So my question really is the council minded at all to revisit some of those sites on whatever evidence Suez might provide about the amount of littering in those areas, or the parishes can provide them, to see whether we can reinstate at least some of those bins to those areas, because we're saving no money if we're having to spend a lot of time going around clearing up, and it might be cheaper just to put the bin back. Thank you.
Martin, do you want to?
Yeah, it's a real balancing act, councillor, and yeah, I don't think there's any one answer to that. There are some schools of thought that if you take all the bins away, people take it home with them. There are other schools of thought that if you put thousands, they still don't, so there's lots of different theories on that. We will always, there's over 2,500 bins across the borough, each of which has a set sum each year to be emptied, and so there has to be that balance between the amount of bins and what the council can afford in terms of the cost of the contract. So there always needs to be those reviews. Certainly those first tranches were done on evidence that my monitoring team had made, but clearly what we didn't do, and I think we've admitted this from the first tranche, we didn't speak to you guys, we didn't speak to the parishes at an early enough point in that process. So any future reviews will absolutely do that. In terms of putting them back, I think there needs to be a period after removal that we allow for behaviours to change. So somebody that's used to dropping the dog bag exactly where the bin was, I would hope on a slightly longer walk, we'll see the one 100 yards down the road and actually carry it to that bin rather than leaving it in the space of the removed bin. So we need to see behaviour change as well, because the reality is the council set a target to reduce the number of litter bins in order to help balance the budget. So we can't immediately put lots of bins back. However, what we are interested in is if we've got it wrong and somebody says, actually, why did you take that one when there's that one down the road that absolutely nobody uses, then we can move that one to a place. So feedback from locals, from parishes is absolutely welcome in terms of that. So it's not a complete no, it's not a complete yes. It's about let's look at the process and see if we can get it right.
Thank you. Lots of hands now. Councillor Harrison, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about behaviour change. And to be fair, there are some areas where the service has never been better, much better than I'm allowed to say in public in the last contract in certain areas. But where we had a number of issues to start with. Some residents in Sheerness, I can't speak for anyone else, took the opportunity to, which they wouldn't get in Elizabeth, the piles of old carpet, the fridge, the freezer, the settee, the armchair, and all the rest of it. They seem to be taking it upon themselves to just keep dump.
Yeah.
Now, it is bad enough in the street and in the general alleyways, but when it's in a gated alleyways and every one of those gates has a separate key, they need to go back and get one. So number one, do they clock it and report it? Number two, what are we doing about a behaviour change with our residents? Because if I pay my council tax, I pay for my bin to be, I pay for everybody to get a bin emptied once a week, whether it's a blue bin or a green bin or equivalent SAMs. I'm not paying for the continual clearing up because you can't be bothered sorting it out. You think it's okay to just dump it in the street. And it's the decent people in the street that keep getting on to us and the council and saying, you know, and we sort out ours. It's an eyesore, it's creating the dreaded vermin. Can the council clear it? And as fast as the council clears it, I'll have another, I'll clear out the backyard and tip it in the alley. And that's what's been happening. And we need to get a bit cuter about covert cameras and prosecuting them, because it is an additional cost to each and every one of us that pays. I think it's really wrong. Say, I know some people took advantage of those first couple of months where things were a bit up in the air, and the people who put their recycling out every single week. And all the time I've been a councillor, we've only collected recycling once a fortnight. It's behaviour and basically take a bit of responsibility for yourself. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, certainly in terms of behaviour change, I absolutely agree. This council will be funded in future on a number of different things in relation to waste. So the better our recycling rates are, the lower our green bin or our black sack waste is, the more funding we'll get, because those that are producing the packaging, i.e. the major companies of the world, the global companies that produce lots of bottles and cardboard boxes, etc., they are now going to be required to pay for the whole life of their product. So from it being delivered to it being recycled or burnt, if it's a non-recyclable element. So our funding in future will absolutely rely on how we as residents deal with our waste moving forwards. And so the council is very clear that we need to do some of that education for those that may not know what the right thing is to do, and obviously some level of enforcement that for those that either choose not to or don't do it. And so from our point of view, behaviour change is about education and it's about enforcement when people are knowingly doing things that they shouldn't be. So I think you're right. We need to work on that. Thankfully, I'm hearing not too much around the disruption at the moment. So what that means is my team can get back to that day job of enabling that education. We have an education officer, a waste education officer within my team. Her responsibility is to go out and work with residents that are wanting to do more around recycling and etc. So absolutely agree with behaviour change. And it's certainly something that the Environment Committee will hear in their future committees around the things that we plan to do to raise that education game.
Councillor No.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, it came to my attention this morning about behavior changes, that lorries are still being prevented from going down certain roads because of inconsiderate parking. Now, I know the council plans on sending out letters, but this is not a new problem. At what point will they look for stronger enforcement like parking wardens?
So for my sins, I happen to look after parking as well, so I can answer that one. Our civil enforcement officers, parking wardens to you guys, I have to call them civil enforcement officers because that's what the legislation tells me. They can only enforce when there's a traffic restriction or regulation order in place. So what they can't do is go out and if there's no restriction on the parking, they can't do it. Police can absolutely enforce if it's a health and safety issue or a blockage issue, but it has to be there and then. So our approach is, as you talk about, our first stage is a letter drop to the road to say, we couldn't get to you today. There's a reason. That's because of the inappropriate parking. Would you be so kind to park nicer? Then obviously beyond that, if it continues to happen, then we will start to put stronger messages out, which is we are not coming back because this is a regular occurrence. And so you need to do it. The other option is to put traffic restrictions in place. But as most councillors in this room will know, that's a 12 to 18 month process because it has to follow a consultation process with those. So they're always our last resort, putting traffic restrictions order in. But if they're not there, it's absolutely pointless me sending the civil enforcement officers there because they cannot enforce them unless there's a restriction there.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, just back to litter bins, really. We've got a lovely bus stop in the road, and that bus stop could really do with a litter bin because it's where all the children go to school, and we are also, our house is on the route to the EPC school, and we've certainly had bins taken away, but if there was one at the bus stop, it would also help where there's those steps going up to what we colloquially call dog alley, because it is terrible.
I really hope we wouldn't get swearing this meeting. Jen had to spend a lot of time at one of our meetings. Yes, lots of bleeping. No, I'm sure there was a more technical term, but we could have got away with. Next, councillors.
Last one, I promise. Sheerness Town Council took out a contract with Swell, 3 walk-by cameras, to look at exactly this problem with regards to antisocial behaviour, including dumping and litter around Sheerness. That was taken out and agreed and paid for before Christmas. We've still not had any progress with regards to actually getting them installed and working. And we really do require help and support with that, because only in the last couple of weeks we've now got yet another spate of fires that are happening in these alleyways. And I attended the alleyway between Merrick and Randy just yesterday because a resident who didn't know how to report to the police actually was quite intimidated by that process, reported to me that some flaps had to be set on fire at the back of our alleyway. Suez cleaned it brilliantly, fantastic response. But we are trying to be aware that Swell hasn't got as much money. But if we take out a contract with Swell, using residents' preset money that is at town and parish level, I think it's the onus is that those contracts need to be honoured. And, you know, we need them up, we need them working, and we need action taken on that as quickly as possible, please.
Yeah, thankfully, that's not one thing. That's one thing I don't look after. So I'm going to make sure that Janet has got that and we'll pass that on to the CCTV manager.
Yeah, can I just go on about what Chris was saying about litter bins? I litter pick quite a lot of the different bits in the areas, and we find that the bins that are supplied by the council are not really fit for purpose. They're either too small for the footfall that's in the area, i.e. McDonald's. The bins outside McDonald's, which are the council bins, not the ones that McDonald's supply, overflow so quickly and get spread around the area. The bins on Beachfields Park have got no tops on them, and the seagulls quite often pick the stuff out, or if you get a strong wind, the wind blows out. Is it possible to look at the size and suitability of the bins that we have and put them in areas where the footfall is most and where they will be most useful, rather than I mean, I noticed there's a bin on the roundabout, you know, there's a Tesco's roundabout when you come in there. There's a bin on the corner there, and I'm pretty sure not many people walk across the roundabout to put rubbish in that bin. If that was located somewhere where there's more people going past, it would be more useful. Can we get somebody to look at the bins and their suitability for the area?
I'm hoping as part of levelling up the bins at Beach will be levelled and we'll have a lot nicer ones, like you say, the open top.
Yeah, but it's not just there. I mean, it's like around James Street and that, you've got these little tiny concrete bins. The bag is always blowing out unless somebody's put something heavy in the bottom of it. So the rubbish gets spread around the area. If they had bins with flaps to stop seagulls or stop the wind blowing the bags around, would be a much more useful bin and would hopefully solve some of the problem.
Yeah, an absolutely fantastic, sorry, fantastic point, and actually something that backs up a lot of what we're doing. So, as I mentioned, 2,500 bins across the borough. Very unpopularly, I asked one of my team to visit everyone, take a photo, give me the styles. We've got so many different styles. At some point over the years, somebody would have asked for that bin to have gone in at Tesco's corner, and we duly obliged. The issue is there wasn't always a theory or a policy to back that up. So since the first phase of the litter bin project, we've now we're just about to roll out. We're giving each bin a number, and I know they're not particularly popular, but QR codes to go on the bin. So that QR code will take you directly to the report and issue with the bin. So it will make it a lot easier for residents to be able, or councillors to be able to report. So we're really trying to up our games in terms of the litter bins. In terms of the inappropriate styles, absolutely. I'm sure when they were installed at the time, the Beachfield bins looked lovely, but they're not functional. They're not big enough. They rot. They're not suitable for the sea air, etc., etc. And so what I'm pushing the team to do is to be able to, clearly we can't replace 2,500 bins overnight, but what we're trying to do, the bins are on the landscaping part of the levelling up project, so they absolutely will be done. That's why we haven't done them as yet, because we're waiting for the final stages, final plans and designs to be done for Beachfields. But I absolutely implore you, if there are bins that don't make sense to you, just let us know, please, so that we can go, right, move it from there and put it there. Because what we are then doing as well, we've plotted them all on a map so that we're keeping a much stronger asset list of what we've got where. And then following on from that, now everyone has got a unique number. The contractor over time, it's not going to be overnight, but over time is going to start to build emptying frequencies on each of the bins so that we know that, because we all know in this room that Sheppey is a very different place in winter and summer. So a bin that might need emptying once a week now will need emptying 3 times a day in the summer. And so it's really important that we get clever with how often the demand is doing it so that we can build the collection routes around them. So it's a really early stage, but that's some of the benefits of the new contract. Before, they were never held on a computer. The crews just knew where they were. Now we're building that knowledge base so that we can become smarter with that. But bigger bins. The other thing I should say is it may not always be popular, but we have a litter enforcement contract where people are seen to be dropping litter. They're given a fixed penalty notice. That income can be utilised to purchase new bins. And so therefore we have some money in a reserve where we can start to replace the worst bins, and those concrete open top ones are on my hit list.
Councillor Shield.
Yeah, when we talk about the waste management contract, most of us do have sleepless nights, but I think it's important to recognise the work that Marty and his team and the control centre staff have done, because they've worked extremely hard under some really horrible conditions. They've faced an awful lot of abuse, as have some of the Suez contractors themselves. And actually, although it didn't go smooth at all, everybody did work really hard. And I know you and your team have responded to emails at all sorts of hours at night. So I think the good thanks to you, Martin, for your hard work.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to the team. They're the ones that do the hard work.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on the QR codes on bins. Maidstone started using them, I believe recently. Do you know why, if this was a new contract, then why they were able to do it first?
Just purely because their team got there before me. I wasn't aware that they were doing them in Maidstone, but we were aware of other authorities across the country that were doing it. We'd had it very much in our plan. It was within our rollout plan and our communications plan, but obviously then the disruption took a little bit of time for my team to resolve. So we took our foot off the gas on certain projects. Now we're getting to that settled collection process. We can start to resurrect those projects and roll them out. So the leaflet, the labels are all printed. We're just working on a communications plan again, so that we can get it right this time. Instead of just sticking them on and people going, what are those? We want to put the comms plan out to say, hey, guess what? This takes you. This is how you can report an issue. Are they in the right place, etc. And we want to be able to deal with what's coming in from residents in a professional way. So,
and that help build what frequencies are needed. If you're getting the same report every day that 4 o'clock in the afternoon this bin's overflowing, you know it needs a second empty. So, yeah. Right, I think we've done that item. Next up, we'll move on to item 8, which is matters arising. Item 1 is about the Household Support Fund, and we'll have a report to the next meeting. The second item is emergency planning. There was a briefing for Swale Borough councillors on 21st of January. Item 3 is the heritage issue area of special control of advertisement. There's a draft consultation document, and it's estimated to be ready for spring 2025. We've got the conservation areas, press notifications, the London Gazette, and it's what we've got. It was published on the Swale Borough Council website at the end of January. Local heritage listing. There was a selection panel, and it went to policy resources in November, and it was unanimously agreed. And we move on to item 6, which is Laysdown Parish Council, and we will have an update from Councillor Noel.
Thank you. Do you need me to stand up?
No.
Okay. Yes, after some unexpected delays, we are very pleased to say that Laysdown Parish Council is now operating. We have 3 new councillors, Kimberly Bowman, Louise Switters, and Sharon Muntz. We have a clerk, Emily O'Neill, and we've also hired Sarah Poole as a temporary RFO. We will be advertising another vacancy, but due to a certain matter, I can't confirm yet whether it's 1 or 2. We will know within 2 weeks, and then the advertisement will go out. Just to let people know, the bandstand report has surfaced deeming it unsafe, so it is being blocked off, hopefully tomorrow. Yeah, so it should be blocked off tomorrow until we can get a new survey and find out the extent of the problems and start looking at costs to fix it. There will be an extraordinary meeting on Friday at 10 a.m. This is simply to approve the budget and precept, which is now overdue, so the council can get it. But overall, really happy. The councils are really excited to be there. They really want to get started. They already have gotten started, and it's looking really good. I'm really happy about it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Next up is the public forum. I believe we have a member of public online who wishes to speak. Nikki, do you wish to ask a question?
Now you're asking me. I had emailed it all in. Basically, I am sort of advocating and bringing a point forward to you all. I have to watch what I'm saying because there's, it's kind of sensitive information regards a pensioner that went missing on Christmas Eve. I'm sure everyone knows who I'm referring to. while I was actually involved with the group on Facebook that was searching for that person, it was brought to our attention, myself and the other admin, that the CCTV coverage between, it's just at the end of the CYC towards the White House, there's like a blind spot there. And because there's no proper lighting for that area or CCTV, the direction on which that person had went, whether it was through Barton's Point or up towards the seafront, we weren't able to determine which direction it was because of those two issues. So I had asked if it was possible for a solar light to be placed there or CCTV. Now I understand that CCTV costs a lot of money, upwards from £2,500. It's a lot of money, I understand. But the problem you have is, although we couldn't do anything for this one person who is still missing, we might be able to, it won't prevent something from happening, but it might give a better indication on if any other missing people happen to go missing. Hopefully not, but if they do, then at least then the search and rescue would have a direction on where to focus rather than focusing on the whole of the whole island. Whether, it's regardless of, well, it's not regardless, but it's whether, I just think that something needs to be put there. It's public safety as well. There's no lighting along that way. Even myself, I've walked there from 8:30 at night in the summer night, and it was starting to get dark. I had an incident occur on Marine Parade at that area. I had to report it to the police. So, and ever since that's happened, I'm actually afraid to go out at night now. And I'm not exaggerating that. I really don't like to go out in the evening now when it starts to get dark. Is it something that can be considered, either solar lighting or a mobile CCTV? Minster only have one CCTV camera, I believe. Sheerness has got 13, 14. Yep, that's fine because there's a lot of ASB. We get that. And I believe that other parish and town councils on the island have had to pay for their own cameras. Why can't Swale Borough Council pay for at least one or two in the areas? I know that it's not the only area that's of concern, but because this incident has occurred, it's obviously been brought to the forefront.
Okay, I'm going to ask Martin to respond.
Janet has got some information from our CCTV unit who have said that they are reviewing the need for CCTV stroke additional lighting in those areas. But at the moment, there's no identified budget for permanent solutions. So what they would propose to do is, in the first instance, look to see if they can evidence the need for the CCTV, if there are suitable columns that are in existing places that can be used. And then they would look to deploy some of the temporary CCTV cameras that we've got whilst they then look into more permanent CCTV. I think just to add on top of that, you'll be aware that there's currently a consultation out in relation to overnight parking at the Shingle Bank and at Shellness, and the Community and Leisure Committee, when they approved to go out for that consultation, also asked us to review CCTV provision in that Shingle Bank area as a way of supporting some of the issues up there. So whether or not that's exactly the area, it's a bit further along than the yacht club, but whether or not that would be a suitable addition as well, should the public consultation come back to look to charge overnight on the Shingle Bank. So it's absolutely noted. I think it may be, Janet, if it's something that could be brought back to a future meeting, but the current update is having a look at the feasibility of it is, but no identified budget at the current time for a permanent solution.
No, and obviously Minster used to have 7 more CCTV cameras than it does now. But the cabinet made a decision in July 2016 to cut those 7 cameras. All the columns are still sitting there. Probably the power's still sitting there. But more recently, I've managed to get 2 additional cameras in Thistle Hill. Councillor White.
Yeah, I'm just pleased at what, I'm glad the question was raised, Chairman. I'm pleased at what Martin said there about the ongoing work to identify new sites and use of the temporary ones. I think there was some disquiet on the island when we learned that Swale had bought 5 or 6 new cameras, but only one of them was going to go into CNS, and the rest were going to go into Sittingbourne. When there are areas of Sheppey where people do feel unsafe, particularly after dark, I'm thinking Queen was one area, but there are other areas around the borough. So I am pleased that that we're going to be using these temporary cameras on Sheppey and where we can, please, and can we have them as often as possible in those hotspots? And if that helps build a database up that allows you to go forward and propose that we actually spend some money, the council spends some money on buying additional cameras for those hotspots, that would be very helpful as well. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Safer Streets funding has to be used in CNS or Sittingbourne. And I think the reason why there's more cameras gone to Sittingbourne is because Sheppey already, or CNS already had better coverage. Councillor Worcester.
Just to clarify, Chair, can I ask Nikki, when you're talking about the yacht club, because they have got 2 areas. One is the actual yacht club that sits opposite potentially the area of EKC in Marine Drive. But I think what the area that Nikki might be talking about is the storage unit where boats are kept halfway along the coastal road. That is yacht club rented or owned, but is a different area from what you may be thinking that she's looking at. So it actually sits opposite the entrance to the shingle bank that you used to drive up. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think sorry, Nikki.
Go on, Nikki.
Sorry. The area I'm referring to is the first lake where Barton's Point, you know, at the end of the CYC. It's right on the corner there.
Okay.
That's where I thought, yeah.
I just want to say as well that I brought this up at Minster Parish Council. Luckily Martin was there as well to take that question to him. Well, I think that's an interesting area for the parish and Swale to work together, because we know that CCTV actually comes up a lot, and not often in that area, but for example outside Thistle Hill Co-op and the play areas and things around there.
Both covered by CCTV now.
Agreed, but for example, we know that residents want to talk about CCTV, and I think we've kind of ignored Minster for a long time, and the assumption is nothing happens in Minster. That assumption is not correct. There is a lot of antisocial behaviour that happens in Minster. Kent Police have just started an intervention with regards to football, which they run the same in Sheerness, so we've seen very similar interventions. So it might be time that we actually look at broadening out our spend to support areas in the same manner, because it's only 3 miles away, isn't it?
We have the budget in 2 weeks as well, and I look forward to your proposal for additional CCTV. Councillor Moore.
Yeah, I think sort of Nikki saying about the event obviously that happened on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and that time following that. I think we need to, it shows what an amazing island we have. The people, and we need to note it here, I think, that the people that went out and volunteered to look, and you know, the RNLI, our RNLI station is quite a busy station, but it doesn't get the coverage because it's behind the docks. They can't have the visitors, they can't have but then volunteers went out on their Christmas Day morning to look, and they was out for hours, and they went out twice more, I think, that day, looking, both boats. And as well, the amount of people that got together in groups to go out all over the island. And I just think we need to make note of, you know, how amazing this place is for that. we are such a big community, and I think we need to make note of that.
Okay, is there any other members of the public that wish to, I'm going to bring you up in the next section, local issues, which is more for parish councillors. So we'll move on to that. Mike Brown. Oh, who's at the back? Sorry. Oh, John.
This general now,
Yes, go on, John.
well, you've got this one about sending a brief in your town about, the flying docks. Well, I was general manager for the steel mill. I was international technical consultant down to working group. I've run scrap yards and I still work internationally on scrap processing. Would it be useful to send me that document so I can actually give you some free advice?
I think if we send that to the emergency team. Councillor Worcester's going to take that one up. Jenny, do I see your hand?
I know Swell is part of Visit Kent anymore, but it's quite difficult for us running attractions when we're not linked into that. Also to promote the island, so we've got Visit Sheppey, we've got Visit Swale, and then we can't go into Visit Kent to promote anything that we want. Also, the attraction with Visit Kent, we used to get support and advice for things like they did an accessibility report for us, which would cost us £2,000. So we can't link into anything with Visit Kent anymore. We still keep our data, but for what? So is there any way that Sheppey could support tourism, support attractions like ourselves, if Swale isn't going to link into Visit Kent?
Councillor Moore?
Oh, it's not, it's when, I've got another eye.
No, go on.
Just as we're all here, and I think it needs to be, is there any way of getting an update on what is happening with the new SEND school at Parkway?
Councillor Watson, do you have the latest or?
My understanding is still due to open.
Because I'm getting told personally, this is sort of more as a resident rather than.
Yeah.
So there's no information online. I've been to all the consultations. I've been told by early help that the school's open and running and there's students there. I've been told by another school and that no, it's still not open. I think there is no clarification for either councillors who are trying to help residents or parents of children with SEND that need to be on the island, can't travel the distance to any other SEND schools for this information. And I think it's we have a high number of SEND students and we're just not getting the information out to parents.
Okay, I'll take that up in the morning and I'll find out and I'll send you.
If you send it to Janet and we'll get a brief on that.
I'll send it. I'm visiting the Elmley Dray School tomorrow, the day after as well. So I can get an update out on that too, so that everybody understands what those two schools are doing. On Jenny's point, I think it's really quite important. I wasn't aware that we weren't paying into Visit Kent anymore in Swale, and I think that's a real trick missed.
A secret cut, I think we might call that.
Sorry?
A secret cut, if no members seem to know in this room.
Yeah. Which is a real shame if that's happened. But I could take that up with Jenny and the chief exec of Visit Kent to see whether there isn't some sort of little thing we can do more on an unofficial channel if we can't use them officially. It just seems to be a real shame. This is a tourist island after all. We get as many tourists as many other parts of Kent do. And then not to have the weight of Visit Kent behind us seems a real, it's crazy. I don't understand why.
Yeah, you'd think they want us.
Yeah, I thought so. Anyway, I'll talk to Jenny and we'll take it offline. If
Perhaps
that's
we
okay.
could raise this to the service committee, which is P&R, which is meeting tomorrow night to discuss the budget. So wouldn't it be nice if we asked that they discuss this tomorrow night?
Could do.
Yeah, sorry, 2 years. Right, is there any way we can bring that update back, actually? I know you're saying on official channels, but I'm worried about that, like you got.
We'll Visit Kent thing, yeah. I'll talk.
From the, which I don't think it's been seen, and brought it up through the Island Forum. I raised with Swell the opportunity for towns and parishes to potentially have a volunteer role, like Faversham has, but they have a paid role, where I don't think you'll mind me mentioning it, but Martin Goodhue, ex-rail employee, works for Paddington, has access to the tourism elements, the visit Kent and things like that.
Yeah.
The proposal for the island, which was supported at the Island Forum, was that potentially we would sponsor a volunteer role to see if that made a difference to input, not pay, nothing out of the budget. And actually, I didn't get a very good pass back from that. So if you're trying that room, maybe we can have that all back.
Yeah, I'll feed it all back. I'll send it all to Janet as well.
I'll add it to the matters arising report,
Yeah.
so it gets updated. at
And Councillor
meetings.
Worcester, what you just said sounds a lot like Councillor Reid's proposal 2 meetings ago.
But that's
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next on to local issues, Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you, Chair. East Church Parish Council are very, very concerned with the lack of enforcement of the 10 months occupation on many of the holiday sites. Over the last couple of winters, this has slowly eroded, and now these sites are, got so many people staying there for 12 months. The site owners are being very clever, they're shutting their gates. So there's no cars going in, so they're all parked outside. So all over East Church Cliffs, particularly the weekends, there's one mass of cars blocking the roads to the sites. But these sites are in use for 12 months, a lot of them now. I appreciate the council's enforcement team, perhaps not as big as they were at one time, but this is a problem, and it is causing a lot of problem with the residents of those areas at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. We'll feed that back. Okay, there's nothing else on that. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, just as another note on, obviously that's East Church, that Lansdowne are having the exact same problem.
Minister.
Yeah, I think I drive through Walden and Lansdowne and you can see blatantly the caravan, like the parks have got their gates open and allowing people in and out all day.
And then the site owners, I think, really take the biscuit because they put in the planning permission to have that 10-month occupancy extended.
Yes.
So say they're meant to shut January and February, they just put the planning permission in halfway through January. We've got 2 items at planning committee tomorrow at Minster, both for extensions, but those parks should be shut now. So I'm very, very concerned there are people illegally living on those caravan parks at the moment. Why have they put in for the planning permission late if people weren't living there?
Well, people are advertising, like say on Facebook, that they've been visited them on such and such a park. And we're like, well, hang on, you shouldn't even go there.
That's shut at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chair, through you as well, there's a bigger issue here, especially for Lansdowne actually, that Lansdowne at the moment, we've just had a GP wobble in Sheerness. So if we've got people living 12 months on a 10-month occupancy site in Minster, Sheerness, Lansdowne, and not paying council tax to be there, it means that our stretched services already are not having the right amount of money put into them because these people are not paying council tax. So it means that places like Lansdowne that have fewer people that are registered for council tax, it means that they are in fact stretching those services around so many more people that we don't know is in the area, schooling, all sorts of things. And actually, I think it's a big issue because in places like Lansdowne, it's really acute that when you go down, they are suffering from a lack of services and a lack of support. When actually they could possibly have maybe double the population that they have, that are just not registered.
Well, Lansdowne, Warden and East Church have one doctor's surgery.
Yeah.
So that's the 3 parishes have one doctor's surgery.
And we know it's done on numbers of residents.
And you
can't
can't
down to a certain
she gets a doctor's appointment at all. And that's even for, babies, the elderly, when they're meant to keep, they say, oh, we'll keep so many. You cannot, and this is what really needs to, the eastern end of the island is really lacking adequate facilities for them parks to be allowed to stay open.
Councillor Whiting.
It's only a brief one. Are we sure that we're not being, Swales not being complicit in some of this in respect of things like waste services? Are we I know we collect, some of the residents up there have 12 months. They're allowed to be there for 12 months. I still think they're supposed to have a primary address somewhere else, but we collect council tax off them and treat them as full-time residents. And we go and collect their waste for them for the bins, for example. Are we doing that with some of the 10 months occupancy people, or are we sort of switching that tap off during the closed season?
We've got an answer for that today, or is that something you need to come back to us on?
All I can say is we are reviewing. So we've done a big review of council tax lists versus collections as part of the new contract. So we're working on that. We are legitimately collecting household waste from some sites, and clearly those that pay council tax are required to have a domestic waste collection. But we are reviewing it.
Thank you.
Councillor Dons.
Yeah, I was just going to come in actually that I think the legislation, I haven't looked it up myself, but the legislation is that if it's a holiday accommodation, that you're only allowed to use that, although it might have a 10-month span, you're actually only allowed to be resident there for something like 8 weeks or something. And that's in a year. And that's as I say, I can look up the act, but that's the situation. So 10 months doesn't give you 10 months for the same person to stay with all the time.
Right, sorry.
Councillor Brown.
I was just going to add, you've got holiday sites and you've got retirement sites. And we'd like to perhaps keep them doing one or two very good retirement sites, well maintained for 12 months. We're affected by the legislation. They pay their council tax and for the services. They're to be encouraged. As Councillor McDonald said, the holiday sites and the council up the back mentioned that people are actually living full time on these sites now and not paying any contribution to any local services at all.
Councillor Knight.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of the fact that the council has certain procedures to follow and it takes time. They have to come on site, they have to prove that the person's living there, they have to show evidence. By the time they get all their paperwork together, it's March. So we need a different way of enforcing this that actually works in the time frame that these parks are supposed to be closed.
So I think that's a matter we need to refer to P&R. We refer things to service committees. So Plan and Transportation Working Group comes under P&R. So I think that can be a matter that we refer. I'll propose that.
I'll second it.
Okay, all those in favour, please show. Against? Abstentions? Some people's arms stop working. Okay, well, it passed anyway. Okay, agenda item 11, matters referred to service committees. I think we've referred. Yes, we're referring to.
Community governance review.
The last one.
You're a bit slow, but go on then.
Yeah, sorry. So there's a bus partnership meeting, which this.
That's not on the agenda today. Go ahead.
And that's what I'm here to suggest actually what I'd like to see is that the minutes this committee asked for any minutes from the bus partnership to be included in the documentation for this meeting, because I'm looking at my minutes, there's nothing that can't go out, in my opinion. There's nothing controversial now. There's nothing that, for instance, is knowledge. I'm happy to have that corrected, but I really feel that those minutes should be attached on. All the area committees are asked to nominate someone to go forward for the staff partnership meeting. And this will be the first time I'll be talking back to area committee about it. And there is actually a good reason, because there is the possibility that KCC are putting together a service plan, delivery service plan for bus funding that's coming forward for central government. And I'd like Sheppey to be in that conversation, which I'm happy to take forward. But the more controversial item is that at JTB, which is Joint Transport Board, for people who don't know, met and discussed a bus issue for the island that was not informed that local councillors should have been there to discuss part of that. So the item was for parking outside Highstead and Folkestone Manor School in Bell Road. It's a contentious issue for Sittingbourne residents, but it directly affects families and the quality of education and basically basic right of island families to choose where their children are educated. And it went straight through JTB that our bus company was going to be ticketed and really enforced against and things like that. And no other option was considered. There was no other option for working with the schools to put in parking. There was no other option for
parking restrictions on the other side of the road to be got rid of. There was none of that, and because I hadn't registered with the chair to speak at JTB, I presume, there was no voice that stood up for those families. So I was pleased to invite Tim from Travel Masters to the bus partnership meeting to have a direct input on that. And weirdly enough, KCC came back with a totally different plan, that they're not going to be pushing for heavy ticketing with the bus company. They're going to be looking at hard standings for the buses in that area, potentially. And I'd really like to make sure that Island residents are aware of what's going on, so we can support our bus company to make sure that those 500 children that leave our island every day can actually be dropped off in safety to the schools that they've chosen to go through. And because every one of those buses takes 50 cars off of the road, we should be supporting bus travel. And it didn't sound like it was being supported at the JTB. I've also asked that any consultation that involves that area is opened up to island parishes and island councillors, because we wouldn't have had a clue as island councillors that there was a decision being made that affected our residents, unless I happened to have been making dinner that night and thought, I know I'm quite bored, I'll listen to the JTB meeting, and there was a really relevant item that was on there. So I'd like support from island councillors that if that comes back, that we at least have representation from parishes about how their children might need that bus company to be operating in that area if possible. There is another meeting coming up around the funding, central government funding for buses coming to KCC, and hopefully we'll report back. But if we can automatically collect those minutes and add them so that when councillors come to this meeting, if there's been a bus partnership meeting, I think it should be recommended for all area committees to automatically receive those minutes and to be published, at least councillors that are attending those area meetings, so that everybody can be advised, because otherwise it is absolutely pointless nominating a member to attend these meetings if those meeting notes are not going to be considered, discussed here, and then ideas taken back, which is the whole point of the area meetings. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, we can have that as a future agenda item.
Thank you.
Yeah, just very quickly, the next JTB is the 3rd of March. Unless I'm thrown off it, I hope to be there.
Okay, Councillor Whiten.
Yeah, just picking up, I think it's probably a good idea to get the bus partnership minutes if we can see those here.
Yeah.
I'd certainly like to see them. On the council was to mention the £23 million the government have given KCC. It's new money. It's only 1 year's money, but it's new money to try to improve and maintain rural bus services in Kent. And I did ask a question about that at County Hall. And subsequently, I've met with the cabinet member and with Tim's Travel, and I've got a further meeting with the cabinet member and Roland from Chalkwell Buses when Roland gets back from holiday. And the purpose of those really is just to try to work out how we can get as much of that £23 million spent on the Isle of Sheppey as possible. Now, I know he's got to spend it all over the county, and I know he can't spend all of it, and spend about half of it on revenue items like supported bus services. The rest have to go on capital, like hard standings. But I do want to see as much of that used on Sheppey as possible. So if I get any feedback from either of those meetings, Chair, I'm more than happy to bring them back here.
Okay, we'll make sure that's the agenda item for the next meeting.
Issue though, was discussed, was the potential for some of that money to be used for bus shelter. And actually that could fit into parish work. I know Sheerness has been a bit of an outlier where we have supported by Council Union Council Wicklow, put it in 2 bus shelters. They've been very, very well used and well received.
Yeah.
So if that funding is coming available for potentially down the line parishes to apply for, then I think it should be aired here to make sure that the parity across the island, and that we give smaller parishes that absolute support, that they can just steal the paperwork from Sheerness that we've used to make sure that islands can benefit in different areas from that.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that wraps up the agenda. I've got here, we don't know the date of the next meeting. The time for the date for future area committee meetings is yet to be confirmed by Swells Council. Next round is likely to take place in June and July, and the dates will be circulated by email and on the website. This is potentially my last meeting as chair, so I want to thank everyone for my year in the chair, and I close the meeting at 21:04. Thank you for coming.
The